Hello, and welcome to the Phoenix Burning Podcast. There is a phase of the Phoenix cycle where it burns and returns to ash, a phase we often overlook in favor of the more inspirational Phoenix Rising. However, sometimes we need to burn away the old before we're ready for the new. I am Veronica Archer, an intuitive guide and transformation coach, and in this podcast, I share my audio diary chronicling my burning phase. These recordings are completely raw and unfiltered, often recorded while I walk around outside in nature, and I release them to you in their unedited state in the hopes that you may find comfort, hope, and maybe some inspiration as you go through your burning.
On the day that I'm recording this, it is January 4th, 2023. And I've just started sharing with you about my journey of restoration. My hope is to share with you my journey over the next 6 months in the hopes that it will provide you some insights and inspiration and commiseration, maybe even. So today I want to share something that's been coming up for me around taking care of yourself in ways that we may not take care of ourselves even when we think we are. Of course, I'll share my own personal experience with this. And, you know, in the interest of being raw, real, and authentic, sharing with you ways that I don't take care of myself and how that's transpired or how that's shown up for me. The other thing that I really want to share as part of this process is energetic principles and using our intuition to make decisions and how sometimes it can get confusing. One of the things that I think is the most important aspect of creating the life that we want, of quote unquote manifesting or creating change, laws of attraction, all those kinds of things. I think one of the key aspects of that is the body, the physical. So I mentioned in an earlier episode, if you happen to listen to it, that I'll probably be speaking a lot about the body, because I do think it is the key to so many different things. And our society has become so focused on the mind and even the emotions, and our body and our energy body is really where we are functioning from our native state, our natural state, in my opinion. So one of the things that I've seen over and over again, both in my life and also in the work I do with clients, is the importance of taking action. So energy work is great. Fantastic. Nothing against energy work, emotional work, therapy, shifting things internally. Our internal landscape absolutely affects our external reality. There's no doubt about that. However, it is equally important to then bring that energetic shift into your physical reality. And that's a step that can sometimes be missed. So what does that mean? So that means that, let's say you've learned all about, perhaps you're a people pleaser, and you've learned all about setting boundaries, and now inside yourself, you feel very strong and confident, no longer a people pleaser. How you feel inside really doesn't matter until you actually take action in a different way. You're setting boundaries, or you're saying no. You're no longer people pleasing in action, right? So that may seem kind of obvious, because as a people pleaser, you're doing that in the 3D. But what I've noticed is that the mere act of taking action can create huge energetic shifts, because you're telling the universe, you're telling your reality very clearly what it is that you want. So if you think about somebody who uses very nice words and says, "I love you, I care about you," gives you compliments, but then in action, they're inconsistent. They don't show up for you. They don't follow through on their commitments, things like that. Are you going to believe that they care about you, that you're important to them, that you're a priority for them? actions are one of the most important things. Really doesn't matter what people say. It's how they act. Well, it's the same thing for us and the changes that we're trying to make. It's our actions that really matter the most. And that's why positive affirmations, visualizations, speaking your truth, speaking what you want is not 100% effective, right? People may find some positive results out of that. Okay, so bringing this back to me, bringing this back to our topic for today, I want to share with you a very personal example of taking action and leaning into intuition and ways that we may not take care of ourselves when we think we are. So I shared, in case you missed it, I'll just recap briefly in one sentence. I shared in an earlier podcast that one of the things that I have not been good about is taking care of my physical health, which of course is probably why in this particular series I'm really focusing on the physical, right? Because it's an area that I have been lacking in. So I'm very good about meditating, communicating, journaling, self-care, and all the different ways, right? Taking baths, going out in nature, spending time with friends, connecting with my family, all the things that anyone would tell you are required for good mental health. So one of the things that I've neglected is following up with medical symptoms. Part of that is, I'm laughing because I'm going to share with you how this is actually a what I call a victim mentality, though I know that phrasing is not very popular. Okay, so I have had experiences in the past where doctors didn't believe me. And I know people, if you're somebody with a chronic illness or a non-visible illness, things like chronic fatigue, autoimmune issues, things like that, it can be very difficult to get a diagnosis. It can be very difficult to even get a doctor who can really believe your symptoms, believe you, and then run the correct diagnostics in order to determine the underlying root cause. It's a very difficult process. I have experienced, when I was dealing with chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia, I experienced the doctor not believing, multiple doctors, but one in particular who, my husband at the time, yes, the one you've heard me refer to as my narcissistic personality disorder, he ended up coming with me because the doctor, he could see that the doctor was not believing me, and he came with me in order to provide credibility to my statements, which is just so insane. And ultimately, that doctor put me on anti-anxiety, anxiety medication, even though anxiety was not one of my symptoms at that time. I was dealing with fatigue and muscle pain. But he just assumed that I was, stressed or depressed or something, and put me on anti-anxiety. It ended up being an anti-anxiety medication that was physically addictive, so it was very difficult to wean off. It took me a year to wean off of that anti-anxiety medication and be free from the side effects of that medication. So insane. So that experience has left me really not trusting doctors and not really seeking alternative practitioners who are outside of the medical system because of the way that it's set up, which is I think a perfectly valid and great approach. It also can be expensive, and the part where I said about victim mentality, right, is that I was like, I'm not going to the doctor because I've had a bad experience in the past. Okay, but you are ill. So perhaps instead of just sitting at home being like, well, someone didn't help me in the past, I'm going to sit here and let my symptoms get worse and worse and worse. Perhaps, advocate for yourself or find someone to help advocate with you. Sometimes it can be difficult, especially when you're not feeling well. You can ask a friend or family member to advocate for you. So if you're someone who's struggling with that, reach out to a friend. I had a friend offer, I'm really good with paperwork. I tend to be pretty detail-oriented. I'm organized. I've been in management in the corporate world. Tend to be really good with all those kinds of things. I represented myself legally, right? And yet when it comes to navigating the medical system, it makes my head want to explode. And I had a friend offer to come with me and help me when I was having some difficulties with my insurance, to just come with me and walk me through the process, going to the office, the insurance office, and figuring it all out. So reach out to people if you're someone struggling with this. Right, so the victim might say, I'm not feeling well. There's nobody who believes me. There's nobody who can help me. I'm going to sit here and suffer in silence. That's why I'm using that word. You may have a different word for it. So if you're someone who takes care of yourself, then what you might say, and I recognize all the challenges in our mindset and our past experiences that may make it difficult to say this. However, I'm providing you with an example of something you can try. And what's amazing about changing our behaviors is that we can start with something small and it'll have a positive impact. And then you're like, oh, that worked. Let me try it again, right? And so this is an example of where action can actually change our mindset, act your way into a new way of thinking. So sometimes we think our way into a new way of acting. Sometimes we have to do that mindset work in order to take different actions. So they're both valid, right? So in this particular topic conversation today, I'm sharing a way that you can take action to potentially change that, what I'm calling victim mindset. Nobody believes me, nobody's going to help me. So one thing you can do is reach out to a partner, a friend, a family member, and say, hey, look, I'm really struggling advocating for myself. Is this something that you could help me with? Come with me to the doctor and listen to what they say. Listen to what I'm telling them. Make sure I'm being clear. Make sure they're hearing me, whatever it is, right? So I get people to help you. So I did not do that. I sat in my misery and I let my symptoms get worse and worse and worse until at the end of December, they became so bad that I could no longer ignore them. I became almost non-functional in ways that felt pretty scary to me in terms of physical pain. I've had fatigue before, and for some reason I just sort of deal with fatigue, interestingly enough. But I was experiencing quite a bit of physical pain that I found quite alarming and is forcing me to take action. So I can't even say that I've resolved it yet, but it's forcing me to take action. Okay, so this is the part I wanted to share with you about ways that we may not even realize that we're not willing to take care of ourselves. So one thing that I noticed over my past few years of starting my business is that I'm very willing to invest in my business and myself as a business owner, whether it's learning business skills, whether it's learning healing tools that I can share with you all. I've taken on loans, I've taken on debt, I've made risky, what most people would consider risky financial decisions in order to start my business. And I did it without fear, without really thinking about it. Didn't require a lot of persuasion or persuasive tactics for me to invest in my business. So I had invested in my business to a level where I was pretty maxed financially, very maxed, and had some, and also did not have health insurance for a period of time. And I had some cash that came into me from some previous investments that I wanted to be very careful about how I used it. And I wanted to invest it and sort of try to counteract some of the more risky decisions I had made over the past couple of years. I was very sensitive to how I was using this money. And I had laid out a plan. I knew that I was going to spend, there was a little bit I was spending for fun and for my kids. There's majority of it that I was investing, and there's a little bit that I set aside for my health. So I had met a doctor through my business, who was a naturopathic doctor and a homeopath, and he's trained in, and he's a psychotherapist, and he's trained in some of the various emotional healing techniques. So he really looks at the whole system, which I knew is what I needed to resolve my long-term health issues that I've been struggling with, which have now turned into an acute health issue that I needed to deal with. And earlier, a few months ago, when I got this, I had looked, when I was dealing, actually a while ago, about a year ago, when I was dealing with sort of the more subtle long-term health issues, I had looked up his services, so I knew what the cost of working with him was. I did not have the cash at that time, but I sort of put it there as I need to work. I know I need to work with him. There was no doubt in my mind. Like, this was my person. I needed to work with him. So when I got this money, I set aside, I knew exactly how much he cost, and I set that amount aside to work with him. And this was like at the end of 2022, and I went and looked at his calendar, and it said that he was full for the rest of the year, but he was accepting bookings in January of 2023. For some reason, I did not book him. And I kept sort of sitting with it, and I kept feeling uncomfortable with spending that money on that service. And I kept asking myself, why am I not moving forward with this? I know that, I know his work. I have complete confidence. So I kept asking myself, what was stopping me from moving forward? Now, if you know me at all, you know that I rely very heavily on my intuition and my body. When I say intuition, it's a number of different things. Sometimes it's a knowing in my mind. Sometimes it's a feeling in my body. And I just kept feeling like, wait, like don't spend this money. Don't move forward with this booking. I was like, well, that's really weird. I was like, okay. At almost the exact same time, I was talking with a colleague, and she offered me to take some training with her that was very exciting to me. And the amount of that training was the exact same amount of seeing that doctor. And I said yes instantly. And I sent her the payment instantly, like within 24 hours. Didn't even think about it. Yep, this feels right. And I sat there and I was like, at the time I saw the irony, right? I'm like, okay, you just used the money that you wanted to spend for your health on essentially your business, right? Business skills, healing skills. What is happening here? So I just observed that, set it aside, and I was like, he's not available anyway. And that was right before my health took a huge downturn. And then it took a huge downturn to the point that I actually wasn't able to finish the course that I had paid for because I was not healthy enough to be able to do it. And I was like, okay, Veronica, you need to take care of your health. So I went again and looked at this doctor's website, fully booked. So this is now January, or very end of December, January, a few days ago. Right now it's January 4th, so it was this past week, fully booked. And I was like, okay. So what does this have to do with taking action, listening to your intuition, listening to the universe, and the universe providing the resources that we need at the time that we need them? So that's something that I very strongly believe and have experienced over and over and over again. The universe provides resources when we need them, at the time that we need them. Source, whatever your belief system is, I'll just say universe for right now. I've asked for resources for different things, and they've shown up like often within 24 hours. So when I say resources, I mean, one of my clients is struggling with this particular topic. It's not something I know a lot about. I need some information on it. And it'll literally drop into my lap. Like I'll run into somebody on the street who has that information. It could be money. I don't know how I'm going to pay rent next month. And a client walks in my door. Right? So when I say resources, I'm using that word very broadly. I need it, whatever it is. And I ask my guides on a daily basis for the things that I need. And when things don't work out, I'm often of the mentality, okay, that wasn't the right thing for you, right? So I don't get too attached to things not working out. Or when things show up for you unexpectedly, you're like, this isn't really what I was thinking I needed, but it's showing up for me and it feels right. Whenever I follow those, it almost always turns into something amazing. So I wasn't particularly stressed about the situation of moving forward with the business investment and then feeling kind of blocked with moving forward with the doctor, right? The flip side of that, so I think a lot of people are familiar with that concept, and people who trust their intuition really follow that flow. But here's the flip part that I really wanted to highlight, which is the taking action. Because I've seen it to be equally true that if we don't let the universe know exactly what we need, or demonstrate that we truly want what we want, what we're saying we want, it's not going to show up. And that doesn't mean that it's not in your best interest. So that's why mindset work, energy work, internal landscape work is really important. Because if you're saying I want something and your subconscious vibration is actually saying you don't, no amount of positive affirmations or visualizations is going to change that, right? So in this case, the opposite was true, where the internal work had been done, or is in the process of being done, right? I recognize that I'm not taking care of myself physically, and now I need to take action to show the universe that this is really what I want. To take care of my body, right? So it may not have been that this doctor was not the right, maybe that the doctor's not the right fit for me. It may be equally true that the universe is just questioning, because I'm, in 48 years of life, I have not really been really good about taking care of my body. And the universe is like, you like investing in your business, here's some more opportunities for that. We know you like that, so we're going to give it to you. That's kind of how it works. So that's why energetics are so important. If you, I'm going to create some controversy here. If you believe that there's, can I say this? If you believe that things are coming up for you because it's in your best interest, because there's some master plan and this is guiding you that way, you may be sorely disappointed. Now, there is, to some degree, I believe and feel that we're all here for sort of, each of us have our own purpose, our highest intention, and the universe is sort of always conspiring to support you in being in alignment with your highest intention. And when you're in alignment with your highest intention, that's when things flow. That's when life feels magical. And when we're not in alignment with that, we're on our life lesson path and we're just encountering obstacle after obstacle after obstacle, because the universe is providing us opportunities to learn the lessons we need in order to get into alignment with our highest intention. That's very different from, oh, well, the universe is always sending me things that's for my highest intention. There's some being or master plan that's supporting me in always moving in the right way. Nope. That's not the case. That's not how energetic principles work. Okay, so what did I do? This is what I'm really excited about in this podcast, because I'm going to share with you in real time what I'm experiencing and what I'm doing. And then you'll be able to see in the follow-up weeks what happened, and whether it's sort of a giant experiment, whether my the things that I'm telling you in a particular podcast turns out to be to come to fruition or be accurate. So my mission of the week was to take care of my body. So I followed up with this. I looked and saw that this doctor that I've really been wanting to work with is fully booked. So I sent him an email and I said, hey, your website says you're fully booked. Are you taking on a wait list, or are you not taking on new clients at all? You know? Oh, he and I had coordinated before, so we knew each other a little bit. At the same time, I was like, okay, I don't know if this is going to come to pass. And I'm dealing with some health insurance problems. So if I had been covered with health insurance, I would have already gone in to see a doctor. Now, here's something that's really interesting, is that I'm not willing to pay out of pocket for a standard Western medical doctor, even though I would probably end up spending about the same amount of money that I'm set aside to work with this naturopath. So that's very interesting, right? And so I'm always kind of like, okay, here's another example of where I'm not willing to spend money on my physical health. I'm a bit rambly today, but this is one of the reasons I really wanted to share this here in this public forum, is because this is something I see over and over again, is people not wanting to invest the money into the thing that they need the most. And probably there's some underlying block, resistance, programming, conditioning that's preventing you from making that investment. And sometimes the way to move through that is to just make that investment, right? Whether it's in coaching or therapy or, business courses. Now, of course, it is important to be discerning. So sometimes we don't want to make an investment in something because it's not the right fit for us. And really learning to tune into the signals that your body and your intuition are giving you to know, okay, is this a situation where this is not the right fit for me? Or is this a situation where I'm coming upon resistance and I need to move forward? So the way that I'm feeling right now in this moment is that I'm not willing to invest in Western medicine. For one, because I also want to honor my money and use it wisely. And I know that I can get health insurance and I can get those services at a much lower rate. So why spend, 5 times, 100 times potentially more for a service that I know I can get for much less? So that's one aspect. A more important aspect is that the doctor that I'm willing to pay out of pocket for, I trust, because I've met and talked with and I know his work. And I've bought courses with him and things, so I'm familiar with him. I've had negative experiences with Western medicine. So I know that my investment is less likely to go as far with Western medicine as it is with this doctor, right? Okay, so do you hear what's happening? I just noticed this, so I want to share this. That's all in my brain. See how logical that is? I just did a fantastic job of convincing myself of why I'm spending my money the way I am. And I felt it as I was saying it. It was all in my brain. None of that was body. None of that was intuition. So that's super interesting. So I'm glad I shared that with you. So I reached out to this naturopath, and I asked him if he had so he responded that he's not quite sure yet. What's my timing? And I responded to him and let him know that I was dealing with some pretty significant things, and I was moving forward with finding somebody in the immediate term. And he responded with, "Go ahead and book time with me. I'm gonna make an exception for you and take you on." When I just received that email this morning. which is why I wanted to share this with you today. When I received that email, I felt this flood of relief. This is a feeling I don't get very often, and I recognize it as a feeling I get when I have made the correct choice. Just this immense relief of being able to work with him. So it was real. So the main point I really wanted to make today was looking back to just a couple weeks ago, where I made the decision to not book with him, right? Because he had availability that end of last year. He had availability January 2023, and I chose to not move forward with it. So I feel confident that this is the right decision. And also I wanted to point out, right, I had a few blocks along the way. My body was telling me no, which I believe now is just my own lack of self-care on that level. My body was telling me no. He was fully booked. I sent him an email. He still wasn't sure. I had to advocate for myself, basically, in order to get time with him. I had to advocate for myself in order to get the care that I needed. But that's the piece that I really wanted to share today. Sometimes we have to take action and show the universe that we are serious about what it is that we want. So I will keep you posted on what transpires with this doctor, see if my intuition, that feeling of immense relief, was correct. And I'm also taking action to resolve my health insurance kersnuffle, because I want to continue being very clear to the universe that I am serious about my health, because this is something that I have not taken seriously enough for my entire life. And I believe that I am going to need to take action multiple times in order to really get the message out there that no, this time I'm serious, this time is different. So if you're somebody who's struggling with something, whether it's past trauma, emotional health, physical health, financial health, your business, things like that, if it's a pattern that's been going on repeatedly, what I have observed, again, in my own life and also with my clients, is that once you start making a change, the universe will provide you with the question multiple times. Are you sure this is what you want? The question may show up in the format of like a roadblock, like this doctor being fully booked. It may show up as another opportunity, like I had the opportunity to spend money somewhere else, and I did, right? It may show up as an opportunity, for example, if boundaries is what you're working on, you may find that people are pushing your boundaries over and over and over again. You're like, good grief, how many times do I have to set my boundaries? So I anticipate that I'm going to hit roadblocks multiple times as I go through this journey of restoring my physical health, because I have not been committed to it at this level in the past. So I will keep you posted, and I remain committed to my restoration.